Hello and welcome to the Tartan Touchline, the podcast where we talk all things football with a Scottish twist. From the top tier to the grassroots, we cover the game like no one else. Fetch a scarf, grab a cuppa or a tinny and join us for a right good gab. My name is Lauren McCulloch and joining me as ever, my co-host Aidan Gilbride. So, Aidan, do you know what day it is?
Very good, Lauren. Earlier in the week I text I think it was last week. I text Lauren and I said I'd watched the Celtic and Bayern Munich game with my friend. Every week we religiously go and watch it at the pub together. It's just a thing we've always done. Even if it's not a Champions League game, if it's a midweek game and it's shown on television, we just go and catch up because we've all got lives. It's hard to see each other. So we went watched the game and I said to him, I can't drink tonight. I work in a supermarket where I do replenishment in the morning, so it's like a 5 a.m. kind of you stack shelves. And so I'm up at 4 in the morning, and I was like, I can't have a pint, I can't even stay out late, go home after. And I text Lauren the next day because I woke up, had a coffee, had a shower, realised I wasn't working that day. I was devastated, doesn't cut it, Lauren.
Oh, honestly, see, when you messaged me that, I was like, oh my God, surely not.
It was quite, do you know that way? I would have been more angry if I drove to work. If I had got to my work and realised I wasn't working, A, it would have been embarrassing, and B, I would have been more annoyed, even though it was probably my fault. But yeah, no, it was, I just went straight back to my bed. But
Quite right. At least it was a half-decent performance from Celtic, though. You couldn't have complained too much.
I was surprised. I was extremely, and we'll talk about it later, but I was very, very surprised. Also, we say that we touch on everything to do with football. I went to a grassroots amateur game and wow, I enjoyed myself. I really enjoyed myself. Right back to the roots. Have you done that yourself?
Something, junior and amateur football, by the way, it's the way to go. I go and watch Thorn Athletic quite a lot because my cousin plays for them, and yeah, I really, really enjoy it. Fights, Barneys, red cards. I mean, I don't think my cousin will mind me shouting them out, but he had a bit of a dramatised fall the other week, shall we say, to get the captain of the opposite team sent off. There was an elbow to the head. Don't worry, there was an elbow to the head. But no, it's never boring. So no, I can imagine the amateur game would have been pretty good.
The game I went to was basically like a Scottish Cup replay in the junior amateur league of the Caledonian League. It's a team in my local town, EKYM, and they've really developed in a fantastic facility there, and it was just such an exciting game. Lauren, it had everything. It had a red card, it had 3 free kick goals, 2 of them scored by the same person. There was 10 goals, it was 6-4.
Oh, those videos you got of those free kicks,
yeah,
top bins.
Absolutely.
Top bins.
And then to top it all off, there was one of the coaching staff on the sideline who had he's from like the area of like Clydebank, and he had the whitest teeth I have ever seen in my life.
Turkey teeth.
Yes, exactly. They would have lit up in the dark, I tell you that much.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it.
Well, we go on to our first topic of the day. We just touch on Scottish football. What's happened since we've left, Lauren? I think we have to start by doing the right thing, which is congratulating Queen's Park.
100%.
They were set up fantastically. A lot's been made following, the game about Rangers lineup and stuff. And for me, I don't really, some people said that he'd fielded a weak team. I don't think he fielded a weak team.
No, I mean, if you look at it, it's really maybe we debated this earlier. It was maybe two or three non-starters in that team. But yeah. I mean, you look at the front line there. Igaman, Sherney. It's not a B team by any stretch, but do you know, I just don't know.
Well, football goes back to the core principle. Not to quote Michael Owen, but whoever scores the most goals generally tends to win the game, right? Yep. Their forward line is probably their strongest forward line that they have had this season, and they couldn't beat a championship side that's mid-table now. Queen's Park are doing great, so again,
I think Callum Ferry deserves a little shout
absolutely.
Out here. Some of the saves he pulled off, was just absolutely phenomenal. And
I mean, James Tavernier is clinical from the touchline. You can say what you like about James Tavernier's defending and stuff, but his set piece plays and especially his penalties, he's prolific. So to save a penalty from him deserves all the credit in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that last minute save as well, where he just kind of tips it over the bar. It's a really good save, and I was looking at the kind of the social media backlash as such, but when I was looking at the praise for Queen's Park, everything was around how is Callum Ferry not at a higher level, and the Queen's Park fans were saying he's a very, very good shot stopper, but his all round play isn't great. But personally, I thought he had an absolute phenomenal performance at Ibrox and at Ibrox as well. Can we point out that was just outstanding?
Yeah, and Rangers left themselves in a situation where, again, just like we've spoke, me and you have spoke off air, it seems to just be such a roller coaster season. It will be full of highs. Doing well and having a couple of decent performances in Europe, really good performances in Europe actually, and then performances in the league that you don't expect and kind of come out of nowhere. And I've done a lot of research into it, and see, to be fair, Rangers this season, a lot will be made about how they dropped points in October and stuff like that, but it seems to be when it became that they were fighting on three fronts, the League Cup, Europe and the league, that they just didn't have the depth from the bench to get through those games unscathed. They dropped a lot of points, more points than what Celtic were dropping, and I think that is probably the result of the gap that we now see in the league. So yeah, but looking at it, it's a consistency thing, really. That's all it's been. It's been a completely inconsistent season for Rangers, and I think that's what's frustrating the fans is they don't necessarily care about the manager coming out afterwards saying, "Oh, we had more shots." That's not what football's about. It's how many goals you've scored in the end, and that's what the scoreline is what matters at the end. A couple of league games, we'll just quickly go through them, assess where we're at in the league. So right now at the very top, Celtic are 13 points clear. Both sets of Glasgow done their jobs. Rangers weren't at their absolute best against Hearts. If anything, Hearts probably played the better football, but they just didn't do the one thing which is important, and that is put the ball in the back of the net. And Rangers, were a little bit more clinical when they had to be. Celtic were surprisingly, I think, really up for the Dundee United game. After there was no European hangover, and I think players like Adam Ida's goal has given Rodgers a lot to think about when it comes to who he's playing up front in Munich this week.
No, definitely. I think, again, as we were speaking about off air, I think when Dyson Maeda went through the middle, it looked like Celtic were a lot more of a threat there. I think just his sheer pace and desire to go and win every ball, it just gives you something a bit different that maybe Adam Maeda doesn't have. Again, touching on Rangers, I was watching the game, and on Sky Sports they came up with a stat when Rangers went 1-0 up through Jamie McCart's unfortunate first of two own goals.
It was a long 90 minutes for Jamie McCart.
Yeah, I do feel bad for him, but Rangers went 1-0 up without having any shots. No shots.
Yeah,
just that own goal.
I think Rangers fans will look at that game as the 3 points were won, and that was what was most important. But this has really been the story of Rangers' season, in the sense that you cannot expect to play that way every single game and to get those 3 points every single time. They weren't at their best, and they got lucky. But I think people won't complain they got the 3 points.
No, definitely not. I think sometimes you need that stroke of luck as well, and they would have definitely taken it before the game. And a 3-1 result at Tynecastle isn't to be shrugged at.
So it's other games, we talk about I think we'll both agree what was the result of the weekend. Will we talk about that one?
Yeah.
What do you think it was actually? No, actually, do you have a different one? Go for it.
No, I don't know.
I think sure. Aberdeen ending a 14-game winless run was critical for their season. It could have steamrolled into a situation where they just didn't win again. That could have happened.
Went into free fall.
And that win was massive, not just because of the result, but I watched the highlights. The players showed a fight and a desire that they haven't showed in months. They threw themselves in front of every single shot that Dundee had. Dundee were unlucky because they had so many opportunities in front of goal, but Aberdeen just had this desire to end this miserable run and I think this will be important going forward for Aberdeen now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's especially away from home, it's a brilliant result. And again, looking at the lineup from Aberdeen, the majority of that starting 11 was Jimmy Tillene's players, and I think that's the first time in a long time they've been able to do that. And I think that definitely showed in their play against Dundee. You know, I think Kevin Nisbet and Papagay up front, that if those two can hit form like they were at the beginning of the season, then Aberdeen could really still finish third, and finish third quite strongly if they can get a string of results together. I think in terms of as a collective, as you said, they flung everything at Dundee. They were not for losing that game. I don't know what happened in the dressing room, if Jimmy Tillene had changed anything, but it just looked like a revitalised side, and it looked more like the Aberdeen we've seen at the start of the season.
Yeah, there was more of that desire, wasn't there? Other results, so I think one of the results we'll talk about is Motherwell and Ross County. Ross County winning 3-0 away from home. They've got a great away record this year. Don Cowie's got an amazing away record this year for County. Probably people wouldn't have expected it. But I have to point out, and I don't want to take anything away from Ross County's performance, Motherwell looked so open and exposed for 90 minutes in the middle of the park, all the way to the back, to the defence, that you have to wonder if the section of Motherwell fans that were involved in the kind of Stuart Kettlewell situation, if they're now regretting what's happened, because obviously they brought a new manager in. I don't know if you want to touch on that a wee bit.
Yeah, so this morning they announced Michael Wimmer as their new manager. I think one that came out of the blue for a lot of people. I think Stephen Naismith was looking to be the favourite, but this morning they did announce that Wimmer had taken the job, which was a little bit surprising considering he'd been rejected a work visa less than 6 weeks prior because he was in the running for the Bristol Rovers job. But everything's been done this morning. He is in the building, so Motherwell will have a new manager for their game this weekend. Yeah,
but I think they need it. Nothing on Stephen Frail, who's done all that he could with what he had, really picking up the pieces of Stuart Kettlewell leaving, but they look like a club that need a bit of stability right now. It's not been great the last couple of weeks for them.
Yeah, I think going off Ross County as well, obviously take nothing away from them, but that's now 4 wins and 5 away games from home. Again, a clean sheet at Fir Park isn't to be laughed at either. Ronan Hale in particular, I want to touch on him because every time I've seen him play for Ross County against St Mirren, he's looked a real threat, but he kind of hit a sticky patch. But 2 goals, and he's now got 8 goals in the top flight for Ross County. And I think really, if you look recently at Ross County, maybe only Jordan White's been hitting those numbers. So I think Ronan Hale's been a really, really positive signing for them, and it looks like he's going to start kicking on now.
Yeah, and then we kind of briefly touched on it. Obviously, Celtic done their job against Dundee United. Dundee United now, I think that's 6 games without a win. 5 losses in 6, or is it 4 losses?
It's 5 losses in 6. Yeah.
5 losses in 6. A couple of weeks ago, I covered the Dundee and Celtic game, and while I was up there, we both work for SBFL News now, and while we were up there, I was singing the Dundee team's praises. Both sets, Dundee were getting results against the Glasgow Big Two, and then on top of that, you had Dundee United who were in 3rd place. And since then, both clubs seem to be really struggling now. Dundee are now in 10th. They can't seem to get a bit of form going, and Dundee United, they're just. Sam Dalby was going on a bit of a goal scoring run, but they seem to be struggling in the goal scoring department now, and they didn't really offer much at Parkhead. Albeit that's a hard thing to do when Celtic are on it, but they really didn't offer much.
Yeah, I think Sam Dalby's still sitting top of the scoring charts with 11 goals, but they do seem to have hit a bit of a sticky patch, Dundee United, considering they have been flying. They have been absolutely flying. Jim Goodwin's got them played really well, but you now start to wonder, have teams started to snuff them out? Does he maybe need to change his ideas a little bit? I think he goes with that back 3, and he has, Ryan Strain on one side, who, again, from experience, Ryan Strain is a phenomenal player, but defensively he has been questioned. So I don't watch Dundee United too often, but I can see that there could maybe be a weakness there. And then obviously if Sam Dalby isn't getting the service up the other end, there isn't really much he can do. I think they would have been happy that they could keep him from Wrexham, considering, I think Wrexham are struggling down south with their goals just now as well. So they'll be hoping to hit another run of form, and Jim Goodwin will be hoping so too, because it is really tight.
It is tight, and since our last recording, it seems to be. I'm not saying we should take all the credit for this, but everyone now seems to be talking about how tight it is. Really, honestly, now below the top two. You've got Hearts, who are just slowly making their way up the league after their worst start ever to a season. We were speaking off air there, or I was speaking to a couple of our university colleagues, and you get the sense that the way that things are going, somehow, despite their start to the season, Hibs and Hearts look like they're in a shout for getting into that top four now, which is crazy when you consider the start to the season that they had.
Yeah, I think a couple of people had them dead and buried in the bottom six with their start of the season, but I'm just looking at the league table now, and there is less than 10 points between 3rd and 10th. And
then, for example, Dundee United, who obviously we've said are in a bit of a bad patch right now, they now have an opportunity to get themselves back into form. They don't have to face one of the Glasgow Big Two. So now they have to focus on beating the teams that are in and around them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think last game, we've got 2 more games to touch on. Kilmarnock, I want to give a shout out. They were going through a wee small period where they just weren't really getting the results, but I thought they were fantastic against St Johnstone, albeit St Johnstone didn't really look that threatening. But a big shout out to Fraser Murray, who really was out of the team. He wasn't finding himself into the team, to come into the team and pick up the pieces of Marley Watkins and Danny Armstrong, who both injured and also out of favour right now. He was absolutely fantastic. He was a constant threat down that left-hand side, and Kilmarnock look like they're hitting a bit of run of form again. Yeah,
I think, touching on Fraser Murray, I think when Kilmarnock were in the Championship, he was their standout player. Everybody was talking about Fraser Murray and how much of a threat he is. This season, I think I go as far to say since he's been back in the Premiership, he's not really hit the heights. But I think that just showed us the Fraser Murray of old and what he is really capable of, and that he can stand up and be counted for when your main players, Marley Watkins, Danny Armstrong, aren't there. And Derek McInnes would have been really happy with that as well, because it just shows that he does have another option. Another shout, I think, goes to the teenager Bobby Wales. He seems to be scoring for fun whenever he plays for Kilmarnock, and
took his goal brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic. I think he must have been watching the Brighton Chelsea game on Friday night, because the likelihood between that and Karen Matoma's goal for Brighton was night and day. I'd maybe go to say Bobby Wales was better with the footwork he used in the box.
I do think his touch was better, and I think the way that he moved the ball in the box.
Fantastic. And I think if he keeps going on the trajectory that he looks like he's going, I think Scotland could have a good wee striker on their hands, which we desperately need. Yeah.
And then lastly, last game, just before we go into, I guess, predictions, but also we're going to talk a little bit about the Championship, because that is super exciting. The Hibs and St Mirren game. Not a lot to talk about, Lauren, to be honest with you.
No, there wasn't. I think first half, St Mirren, they looked the more threatening.
For sure.
Smith in the Hibs goal pulled off a wonderful double save to deny Olasanya and then Mark O'Hara, I want to say. I want to give a massive shout out again to Rocky Bushiri, which I never thought I'd do, but here we are. He was like a man mountain back there. It cleared everything in his path. Every threat that Olasanya posed with his threat, he matched it. How he managed to keep up with Olasanya, I've got no idea, but I think he showed Rubizic how to do it.
Aye.
But yeah, second half, I don't know, it was a bit scrappy. Hibs kind of came into it. They were awarded a penalty, which actually hit the head of Killian Phillips. I don't know what the ref was seeing there, but here we are. But yeah, I think that both sides would have taken a point at the start of the game, and actually that point lifted St Mirren 3 places in the league from 9th to 6th, so I will take that.
But also, I think, see, for Hibs, that's a game that at the start of the season they would have lost. 100%, they would have lost. Yeah. And I think a lot of credit, again, has to be thrown Hibs' way. They're getting the results now, and even that, a point as a result, and that just shows away from home.
That's just character in the team. I think that they're able to grind out results like that, and again, they would they have lost it? Maybe not to St Mirren, because we can't really score, but I get what you're saying, and I think it is just It's just a case of keep pushing forward for Hibs because they are sitting quite nicely in 5th in the league and they're only 3 points behind Dundee United.
Yeah, it's like we said, we can't say it enough, it's getting quite tight. So before we move on to, I guess, we're really excited to talk about the Championship. We've been talking about it ever since we done our last episode. The games for this weekend. So we'll just quick fire. I'll fire it at you, and then you say, and then I'll say. So
No
Hibs
pressure.
Celtic. I say Celtic with gritted teeth. I think this is going to be a really tough game for Celtic. I don't like going to Easter Road when Hibs are in form, but also at the same time off of the back of 2 European ties against one of the biggest teams in Europe. I think there might
bit of a hangover.
I think there might be a hangover this time, especially because they're travelling. So I say with gritted teeth, I think Celtic will get the job done, but I think it'll be a close encounter, and I definitely can see Hibs scoring. Dundee United, Motherwell.
That's an interesting one. Motherwell new manager bounce. Dundee United need a result. I'm going to go with a draw. I think they will just cancel each other out.
I would have said that last night when we were kind of preparing for the podcast, I would have said Dundee United, but now I'm going to say a draw because it is very typical to get a new manager bounce, and with that announcement this morning, I think for sure. I think that might be a draw. Aberdeen, Kelly.
I'm going to go another draw. I think Kilmarnock off the back of that result will be they'll be flying high. Aberdeen, again, they've just broken their kind of losing or winless run, shall we say. Both teams will be up for it. I think it will be an absolute cracker, but I do think it will be a draw.
I am very intrigued by this game, specifically out of all the games in that. This weekend. This is the one that intrigues me the most because Kelly are on a bit of an up, and I'm very interested to see how Aberdeen now continue after ending that winless run. But I'm gonna say Kilmarnock. I think Kilmarnock might get the job done. Okay, Ross County and Dundee.
I'm going to say Ross County.
I'm going to say Ross County too. And there's no real reason for it other than Dundee are just a bit out of form right now. But at some point, I guess that has to end. But I'm going to say Ross County. Rangers and St Mirren. What do you think? What do you think, Lauren? You tend to show up against the big teams. We've said that.
You know what? We play better against teams where we don't have the ball. And I said that on last week's or show
last
2 weeks
episode,
ago. Yeah, last episode. If it was at St Mirren Park, I'd feel slightly better. Anything we can get against the Old Firm is a bonus, and it's the same for every team in the league. I think Rangers will win. I don't think it'll be an absolute trouncing. But I think if we can keep the ball well, if we get a chance and we take it, which we've not really done previously, but if we can we know we'll get a chance. They will give us a chance, and we just need to take it. But I do think Rangers will win this one.
I think you stated quite a lot. The speed and power of Olasanya will be key to St Mirren's game plan. Because if Rangers play full strength, their centre backs are good centre backs, but I would also say they're not the quickest. So that plays into St Mirren's favour. But I'm going to go for Rangers. I think they might just. I think they just might be a bit too strong at home, and I would share the same belief as you. If it was at St Mirren, it would be a different situation, I think. But last game, we've got St Johnstone and Hearts.
I'm going to go Hearts.
I'm going to go Hearts. I think Hearts are starting to play some really nice football. Nice diamond shape. Yes, it leaves them a bit exposed on the wings, but I think it seems to be working now for Neil Critchley and his men. So I'm going to say Hearts.
I think they've just got a real identity now, which I think they did lose under kind of Naismith. But I think as you said, they are hitting this kind of run of form. Shanklin's, as much as he's maybe not scoring a lot, you can see that he's getting more confidence.
His game's improved.
He's linking up, and I think Kabangu, I think he's been an outstanding signing for them, and I think that will just help them going forward.
Yes, so will we just quickly run through, we'll do this speed fire because we really want to try and get onto the Championship. Best goal of the weekend?
So I'm going rogue.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going really rogue. And I'm going to go with Matty Grant for Stranraer against Elgin.
Yeah, you showed me the goal earlier today.
Now, this goal...
Brilliant goal.
If you can, go and watch it. Matty Grant, I watched him at junior level when he played with Pollock. And you could tell there was a talent there. There was a real desire, a real want. And yeah, he's been really, really good and consistent since he's been at Stranraer, and he's taken the ball from right back, he's flicked it over the winger's head, played a 1-2 with his midfielder, and fired this thing from the right wing from about 40 yards over the goalkeeper and into the goal.
It was quite the goal.
It was outstanding.
And this is where I guess your knowledge of kind of lower leagues is good, because I had no idea about the goal until you showed me it, because I had Keskinen for Aberdeen.
Another good shout.
There was a lot of good goals in top flight this weekend. And I Murray's free kick was great for Kilmarnock. Wales, the way we've obviously spoke about that, the way he took the ball. Ida, the way it was very similar to Keskinen in the way that the ball bounced awkwardly but fired it into the back of the net from long range. But I just think Keskinen's was a little bit more skillful in the way that he was able to.
I think it was very.
Shoot.
You could tell what it meant to him as well. You could really tell.
I think you could tell what it meant to just the fans and all of them as well. They really needed that.
Yep.
So yeah, Howler. Jamie McCart had a long game.
Jamie.
He had a very long game. I would say my biggest gripe in the world is teams that pass out from the back. Andy Fisher had a bit of a howler for St Johnstone against Kelly. He basically passed it right into a danger area, and Kelly's first goal came from that. So, but I think unfortunately, have to go for McCart. I think a game that he'll want to forget.
Yeah, definitely.
Best player, I've already talked about him. I think Fraser Murray was outstanding. Absolutely outstanding for Kilmarnock.
I'd agree with that. I think it would be harsh to give it to anybody else after, especially being so out of favour in Kilmarnock for so long. For him to pull out that kind of performance, I think he more than deserves it.
Excellent. So, will we now fire on to the Championship? Lauren, do you want to take us away?
We shall, yes. So, I'm going to leave the big game till last.
Mm-hmm.
If I run through the rest of the results, Morton and Airdrie drew 2 each. Rhys McCabe is, he's got Airdrie hitting a little bit of a run of form. I think it's too little too late. They are sitting 10 points adrift at the bottom of the table. But from where they begun at the start of the season to now, you could see that they've made slight improvements, which is good to see. Considering how well they did last season, I think it was a shock to everybody to see them kind of struggle so much.
I think there was a lot of optimism surrounding Airdrie going into this season, and I think it's not quite been the season that they thought it was going to be, but seems to be turning around slightly towards the end. Yeah,
definitely. I think they'll just want to finish strong and build for next season. Livingston 0, Dunfermline 0. By all accounts, I don't think it was a great game. Livingston are sitting quite happy in third. Dunfermline, they're trying to catch Hamilton to get out of that relegation playoff place, so it's a valuable point for Dunfermline. But it's maybe an opportunity missed for Livingston.
Definitely an opportunity missed from Livingston, especially with one of the other results we're going to talk about. That was an opportunity for Livingston to really get themselves back into this 3-horse race. They still very much are in that 3-horse race, but they're the ones that are just adrift right now in third. But I think David Martindale and his men will look at that as points dropped rather than a point gained.
100%. A good result for Hamilton Accies. They beat Queen's Park 2-1. Scott Robinson scored for Hamilton Accies, a man who seems to be about for ages, and Ricky Lamy as well. That put Hamilton a point ahead of Dunfermline in 8th place. They also have a game in hand over the Fife side as well. Raith Rovers 3, Partick Thistle 0. I don't know what's going on at Partick, I'm not going to lie. Finlay Pollock with a double and a Dylan Easton penalty. Secured the points for Raith Rovers, but I really don't know. I know Brian Graham got sent off last week, but
I think a lot of Partick fans are quite disillusioned with the direction of the club in the last couple of years. I'm a big listener of Clyde One Super Scoreboard, and they had a Partick fan on last week, and he just seemed quite lost, to be honest with you, with the direction of the club. Things just haven't seemed to really go well for them since that playoff game against Ross County. They really should have went up. They threw that away. Yeah, you can give Ross County all the plaudits in the world for being able to come back, but Partick should have went through with the lead that they had, and it's kind of been, I don't want to say free fall, but things have not kicked on since then, and I think a lot of Partick fans are just becoming a little bit frustrated at the direction of the club.
Yeah, 100%, and you can understand why. They were in the Premiership for so long. I mean, they are still sitting 4th. They are 6 points ahead of Raith Rovers, albeit Raith Rovers do have 2 games in hand. so they could end up out of the playoff places. But I think the big game we need to talk about is Falkirk to Ayr United 2. Liam Henderson and Scott Arfield scoring for Falkirk. Scott Arfield, hat-trick in his debut last week. Another goal today. He looks like a real coup for them. Jay Henderson and George Oakley for Ayr United. Jay Henderson now has 7 goals and 7 assists. So he's sitting top of the the goal contribution chart in the league. He's doing phenomenally well. And George Oakley is top goal scorer in the league with 12 goals. So they've really got some firepower. Both teams probably would have taken a point, but for Ayr United to be 2-0 up, I think they will be a bit disappointed that they're not going up the road with all 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it could have ended a lot worse. They could have ended up losing all, walking away with no points. But I think the addition of Scott Arfield for Falkirk might be critical in this title race / who's going to get auto promotion. More from the fact that Falkirk have came up from the league down, and a lot of the bulk of their team are that team that won the league below. Scott Arfield is a proven top flight player, so I think that experience that he'll bring, I think he'll be key in the number of games ahead for Falkirk. But for Ayr United, that's 8 games unbeaten. Scott Brown seems to really be getting a tune out of the players towards the end of this season, and we're going to now go on to it, but how exciting is it up there at the top?
It is so exciting. I think if you'd have said at the start of the season who the top 3 teams, I think you probably would have bet your hand on Livingston. You maybe would have thrown Falkirk in there, but I don't think you would have put Ayr United in there. I think just with how their seasons tend to go is they either start really badly and finish strong so that they just survive, or they start really strong and then really tail off. But this season, Scott Brown has really struck a real consistency with them. They've looked a threat in pretty much every game they've played. I think that the Hibs game, they showed they can compete with the top teams in the Premiership. I really enjoy watching them. Their style of play, I think, is brilliant. Just the players they've got, Jay Henderson, George Oakley, you've got Nick McAllister at the back. They're just real threats, and they keep the ball so well, but it's not just a possession-based game because they go forward in their numbers, and that's where they create their chances and their goals from.
Yeah, and I think you look at some of the managers that Scott Brown has worked under. He obviously will have his own stamp and his own philosophy and his own way of playing, but he'll have certainly picked up things over the years for the managers that he's worked under, and they genuinely play. The top two teams play genuinely very, very good and interesting football. But yeah, fantastic for Ayr, especially just missing out a couple of years ago. I think Ayr United fans will feel this is their time to prove themselves. I don't think the Championship's ever been so strong. It's fantastic to see. And you look at it right now, Falkirk 50 points, Ayr 48 points, Livingston 46 points, and you just look at the games they've played against each other this season. We've obviously got this weekend, Livingston and Ayr will be playing against each other. It'll be exciting to see what happens there. Falkirk's results against the other two. So against Ayr this season, they've won 1, drew 1, lost 1. Crazy. Against Livingston, they don't have as good a record. 1 draw and 2 losses. So Livingston, David Martindale getting the better over John McGlynn there. But Ayr, they've got, again, 1 win, 1 draw and 1 loss against Falkirk, and 1 win and 1 loss against Livingston heading into this game. Livingston, we've touched on it, but it's They just can't seem to get the better of one another right now. Yeah,
I think it's more down to who can win or who can pick up the more points,
out with
the teams around them, because I think, as you said, every game between them is just it's thrown up in there and it's a flip a coin. Falkirk being away to Morton this Friday night, I think, is a little bit of a banana skin. Capello's a really tough place to go. I think under the lights as well, the Morton fans will really want to get a result to maybe put them in with an outside chance of the playoff. They win that game, they go on 31 points, they go up to 5th, and they've got 2 games in hand over Partick Thistle. So they've got something to play for. If John McGlynn was to do a double promotion, automatic promotion, I think...
That's a great story.
Do you know what? It's fantastic. But again, I think, as I said, the more points that they can pick up, not lose from the teams from the teams out with the top 3, that'll be.
I think that'll
valuable.
be what defines who wins the title, who gets the auto promo, and who gets into the playoff.
Which seems to be the opposite of every other title race.
It's crazy.
Who's about you, but
it's really interesting. I didn't get a chance to really see Ayr at their best. I watched them in a Scottish Challenge Cup game against East Kilbride. They had a lot of injuries, and East Kilbride, the Lowland League team, managed to beat them. But since the kind of festive season, Ayr have really went on a run now. Like I said, 8 games unbeaten. These sets of games this weekend are going to be very interesting to see where things go, because if Ayr or Livingston can get 3 points against whoever gets those 3 points, if there is a win in the game, and Falkirk drop points, it's just going to get even more interesting at the top.
Yep, 100%. I think Morton with the signing of Tommy Adaloy, I think that's a fantastic signing for them, a proven striker in this league, and if they can get him firing, then Falkirk might be in trouble.
Yeah, it's really, do you know what? It's very exciting to see, and I've said in a number of times that I do think, the teams towards the bottom of the top flight now should be worried about who they have to face. Because they are 3 strong teams. What I love most about this, and the last thing we'll touch on with this championship, is this is 3 different stories and narratives that I love. So we've got Falkirk, we've got the double promotion, the experienced manager in John McGlynn trying to get them back up to the top flight for the first time in 15 years. Then you've got Ayr, who have been out the top flight for 47 years, with the young Celtic captain, one of the most successful Celtic captains in their history, in only his second job in management. Then you've got David Martindale trying to get the Livingston side back up to the top flight after going down last year. It's just 3 really exciting narratives and stories that are unfolding in front of us.
And that's what the championship's all about.
So looking at Celtic's performance against Bayern Munich, did you manage to catch any of the game yourself?
I watched, I think it was the last 20 minutes, I think I seen of it. Personally, I thought Celtic were really good. I thought they restricted Bayern Munich. Watching the highlights back, I think the defending for Harry Kane's goal in particular could have been a lot better. I mean, you cannot leave Harry Kane unmarked at the back post. That's that's football 101.
Criminal.
That is football 101. Do not leave a world-class striker free at your back post, or you might concede.
Yeah, I would say overall, looking at the game for 90 minutes, I was pleasantly surprised. I think most Celtic fans go into ties with the big Europe elite and worry that potentially they could get a bit of a hammering all the time. They always feel that way, even if spirits are good. But I do have to say, maybe other than showing Bayern a wee bit too much respect in that first half, I would say the only foot they really put wrong was Harry Kane not being marked in that goal. I can forgive the first goal in the sense it was a fantastic strike. Did Greg Taylor kind of fumble the ball a bit? Yeah, but I think Celtic made a really good account of themselves, especially in that last 20 minutes. From the point of view of, and it's not anything against Adam Ida, but when Dyson Maeda was put through the middle and you had Jota on one side, and even, by the way, I can't believe I'm saying it, but Yang coming on, who hasn't been really successful for Celtic so far, Celtic just looked a lot more threatening and quick going forward, and it really put pressure under the Bayern Munich backline. And it'll be interesting to see what Brendan Rodgers does going into Munich now, because Celtic's best period of the game was the last 20 minutes when Maeda went through the middle. So it's one of those games that, listen, Celtic could go there and get beat 3-0. It's Munich, it's the Allianz Arena, it's one of those stadiums that it can happen. So yeah, be interesting to see. Obviously, as we're recording, it'll be happening that night. But I do expect Bayern Munich to get through. But I would like to hope that Celtic will have a right go at it.
I think looking at what Rodgers might do, I think he needs to look at the fact that severe underdogs, right? Real severe underdogs. I think if you look at the Bayern Munich team, their weakness is their back line. So what's going to threaten them more? Is it the physical president? No. The physical presence of Adam Ida, or is it going to be the sheer pace of Dyson Maeda?
Yeah.
And I think, personally, looking at it from just a complete neutral point of view, they'll struggle to contain Maeda more than they will Ida. they'll be up against physical presences week in, week out in the Bundesliga. Adam Idah, yes, he's a goal scorer. Yeah, he's probably more experienced. He's probably played more games at a higher level than Dyson Maeda, arguably. But I think you just need to look at Maida's work rate and energy and speed. He'll cause all sorts of problems for those two centre backs, and if he's got Jota, Yang, or whoever he's got playing off him, if that front three can be that out ball for Celtic, it just might give the rest of the team a bit of respite, because they'll run all day for you. And I think they will need some respite with Jamal Musiala, Harry Kane, Thomas Muller.
Absolutely.
You've got world class players there, and you won't have the ball. So I think when you do have the ball, you need that outlet.
Yeah, and like I said, I really, if I was Brendan Rodgers, I would, based on the fact that the narrative with Jota coming back was that he was out of shape, he wasn't fit, match fit. I don't see that. He looks as fit as he ever has been. He looks prolific. He looks exciting. I would let him loose. If I was Brendan Rodgers, I'd let him loose, and I'd play the front three that is going to be just really fast on that back line, because it's probably the only thing in Bayern Munich's team right now that is a little bit shaky. So go for it, see what happens. You never know. Lastly, I would touch on, I really like to Lucas Schlupp. He looks a right good player going forward defensively. And if Taylor does decide to move on at the end of this season, I think Celtic, with his contract coming to an end, Schlupp, him being out of contract and being a free agent, I would really look into potentially snapping him up and having him as a backup to Tierney, who's, I think we're being led to believe, is coming in the summer.
I think Schlupp's experience on its own would be a real coup for Celtic, and Greg Taylor, I think he gets a lot more stick than what he deserves. But again, if he decides to move on, I think he goes with everyone's best wishes at Celtic, just because of the servant he's been. But I don't think Schlupp would be a bad replacement if Tierney comes or if Tierney doesn't.
I guess from the Rangers angle, there's not really much to talk about from Rangers' point of view in Europe. Obviously, they've got to do a wee bit of waiting now. We're talking beforehand. It looks, based on the first legs, it looks really likely that it will be Fenerbahce or FC20, which that's two. Listen, Rangers tend to perform well in Europe or get results that you don't expect, but I would say those are two difficult ties. Going to Holland and going to Turkey is difficult, and FC20 are playing very well right now. And then obviously you've got the Mourinho connection. It'll be really interesting to see who they listen. It might go the other way, but it's looking likely it'll be one of them too. So that's just, I guess, the Rangers angle. So
I think if you were to say to Rangers fans, Fenerbahce or FC20, I think compared to some of the other teams they could have got, Galatasaray, Alkmaar, Roma, Porto, Ajax as well. I mean, they probably wouldn't have. They probably would have taken Fenerbahce or FC20, to be honest. I think it's two really good ties for Rangers to really go and test themselves. The fact that they automatically qualified, I think, was fantastic. It was a really fantastic achievement. I think especially with the way their league form was going at the time that the Europa League was happening. I think it was a really good outlet for them. But yeah, there's no doubt Fenerbahce or FC20 will be tough ties. But, Rangers have proven in Europe before that they can beat the big teams, and it's just a game at the end of the day.
So we'll now move on to, I guess, our big debate. Every episode we'll try and have a big debate if we can. This week we decided, because we didn't focus much on what's going on down south, we would talk about, really, Lauren, the bizarre season that is happening at Manchester City, and I think you can get distracted by the 115 charges, the Rodri being out, and unfortunately personal issues in Pep Guardiola's life. But the simple fact of the matter is they're performing abnormally.
Yeah, it's not the Man City that we've seen that we've seen previously. I think at the weekend there, just past, they got a really good result against Newcastle. 4-0 they won, which I think it was more like the Man City of old. From watching the highlights, it looked like they were relatively back to their best. Omar Marmoush with a hat-trick. I think Gonzalez in the middle of the park, was described as a mini Rodri. I don't know if that's putting too much pressure on the young man, but we have seen the fall off since Rodri got injured, and it happened last season as well. I mean, they're still sitting fourth. Yes, it's way off where they want to be. They're 16 points behind Liverpool, but it has, I think you described it in a nutshell, it's just been bizarre.
It's been bizarre, and I'm going to throw some stats at you, because what I've found most surprising about Man City this season has been, I mean, we talk about mentality and how they've been mentality warriors for the last 6, 7, 8 years, and I have never seen them capitulate in the way that they do, in the sense of either losing or dropping points from a winning position. So I done a little bit of research into this, Lauren. On 9 occasions this season, Man City have dropped or lost games from winning positions. In those games, they have conceded 22 goals. 20 of them have been in the second half, and 11 of them have came in 80 plus minutes, which, I mean, you look at some of the examples, Feyenoord being one of probably the more obvious ones, but this is just so out of character, and you do start wondering, is off the field stuff and everything that's going on with the team, the uncertainty, like Man City seem to have been trying to, I guess, pull the wool over their fans' eyes a wee bit by doing stuff like giving Pep a 1-year contract extension, giving Haaland a 9.5-year contract, and you just wonder, are they papering over the cracks in the sense that players are distracted with what's going on out with the actual football itself? I couldn't believe that when I done the research, and I couldn't believe that of the 22 goals conceded, 20 of them came in the second half. That's crazy. Yeah,
it's absolutely insane, and I think even if you just look back to the 2021-22 and the 2022-23 season, they'd only dropped 4 points from winning positions at home in the Premier League, and across 2 seasons.
And I feel like the excuse at the start of the season was, we don't have Rodri, and I think Rodri's a fantastic football player, but I don't even think Rodri could fix this right now. There is something seriously and fundamentally out of whack at Manchester City right now. And a good result against Newcastle at the weekend, but I think larger big picture stuff is, the fact that league points dropped from winning positions have been 12. They've out of those games, 5 of them were league games. And they've only achieved 3 points from them, which is pretty crazy to me.
It is wild, and again, going back to the whole mentality thing, and we never would have seen this from a Man City team of old. No. Under Guardiola, especially, it's just not in their nature. It isn't Man City, or the Man City that we know anyway. I know a lot of the older fans will remember when Man City were, maybe not in the top tier, they were struggling, but the Man City that's had all of this money pumped into it, left, right and centre for the last decade, this would never have happened, and it's just a case of what is going on, because I don't think anybody can pinpoint one thing.
No.
Because there's just so much going on at the one time. So again, they were always going to hit a run of form. Is this Newcastle result maybe the start of the revival of their season? We all know what they're like after Christmas. They do just seem to go and obliterate everything in their path.
But I would say people have been waiting for that, and it doesn't seem to have happened as of right now. But yeah, we will see what happens, and I'm really interested to see how they finish the season now, because they have a really tough task ahead of them if they want to, to go to the Bernabeu 3-2 down. It's especially the form that they've been playing. It's a really hard ask.
It's a tough ask for anyone.
I feel that it will go that way. But listen, maybe that result against Newcastle is really what they needed going to the Bernabeu. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they now finish, because all they can really do now is just make sure they stay in that top 4. And it is getting a wee bit crowded up there too, like it is, I guess, in the Scottish League from second down.
Well, I suppose that is all from us on this edition of the Tartan Touchline. Please do write in with feedback, suggestions and anything you would like us to cover. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and Twitter, and you can even write to us at thetartantouchline@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Lauren McCulloch.
And I've been Aidan Gilbride.
And we'll catch you next week.